One quick slide on summer 2019 projects. The bathroom building at the high school track, I want to talk about that, kind of revisit some discussions that we had earlier on about that building. Palmer, we have a couple quick updates on Palmer, and the board would like to take a look at some discussions as far as looking at emptying out that building to get ready for the upcoming project. Cottingham, we have a couple items there to talk about as far as final decisions or board decisions to make as far as it impacts the final design work, and then potential phase 2 for the Cottingham site. So if you go to the next one. So really good progress is being made out at Cheston. We're very pleased with the coordination process that's happening out there. I know that Joe and Randy will agree with me. We think the quality of the work, the speed of the work, it's all going very well out there. That substantial completion was targeted for May of 2020. I think we're actually a little bit ahead of schedule at this point. So, we have a good summer time frame with good weather. We'll be in very good shape at this point as far as remaining on track, if not finishing a little bit early. So you saw the exterior of the building on the previous slide there, as well as drywall that's going in the classroom section. Top left photo is another interior photo of the classroom section. That 3-story wing is really the furthest ahead. They started with that section since most of the work is happening in that 3-story wing, and are kind of working their way south through the admin wing and the gym. So the permanent roof is underway. In fact, it's complete at the classroom section. The photo on the bottom right is the progress last week over the gymnasium section. So making very good progress as far as getting that building enclosed, which is very important to keep the weather out so that interior finishes can stay on track.
Josh, the exterior brick that you see on the 3-story section, that exterior brick, is that the same color brick that's going to envelop the rest of the building?
I believe so. Do we have any accent lines, Randy? Yeah, that will be the same type of brick.
Oh, yes, absolutely. I was just curious as to whether that color was going to change on a different section of the building, whether that was going to be.
Drive by and see that it looks different, probably because that section wasn't as much. So once they wash it all,
I see. Yes. Good.
So if no other questions or comments on Cheston, one thing that we did just want to mention, it's not super critical as far as a time frame right now, but looking ahead, I know that the district will start the furniture review and selection process at some point in the near future, just to make sure that everything is ready and planned well ahead of time for actually getting it moved into the building. So again, no decisions needed in the immediate future, but something that's on the horizon to get that building equipped.
What is the timetable for that? When would you expect them to have decisions to bring forward?
We were looking at around the July timeframe to really get the vendors selected and get the products to the point where desks are being selected, chairs are being selected, so that over the winter timeframe is when that ordering and procurement process can happen for the early spring.
So potentially June back to the board. So between June and July to have samples and talk about it, to wrap it up so we have one of these meetings for that.
Right. Okay, so for the upcoming summer projects, these are the ones where the bids were reviewed and approved at the last board meeting. The middle school data project, the high school track and synthetic turf replacement, and the high school facade restoration. Those bonds and insurance documents are all being assembled by the contractors and submitted. So contracts are underway. We are going to schedule the pre-construction meetings over the next couple of weeks. Basically, logistics sort of review, go over their schedule, where they can work at certain times and just kind of have a kickoff meeting for each of those projects. Other than that, there's one no update as far as any work that has taken place, obviously, at this point. But as soon as the students are out at the end of the school year is when most of that work is really going to start in earnest.
Are we confident that the work on the field is going to be accomplished in time to coincide with the return of students?
We are, in fact, and Jim, I think you're here. So right after the basically Memorial Day, right? That can be turned over. So we'll get a little bit of a jump in that respect. So, you know, barring any extreme weather conditions this summer, I think that's absolutely expected.
But back to the building, when's the building going to be? We have in the contract that they have to speak on time with penalty clauses and everything, and when do you expect
The substantial completion date, I believe, was the first week of August. And you're correct, Bob, there are liquidated damages included in the contract for that.
That's
and then you have the same for the track.
Yes. Now, when you say building, Bob, what did
I mean, the cleaning the building, spacing 22 and that's what we're doing.
Yes.
But that's all also by August 1st.
It's around the first week, Bob, I have to check the contract to determine the actual date, but it's around the first week. All right, so I had mentioned about the high school track and field venue. A couple meetings ago, we had some discussions about the upcoming bathroom facility, where it could be located, how it could be accessed, that type of thing. So it's kind of tough to see, but basically just to kind of give everybody another overview of the entire Kunkel Athletic Complex, what we're looking at is situating that building right about here near the top of that hill. Okay, so definitely favoring the track and field venue side more so than the softball, baseball fields. You know, but there's a couple reasons why that makes sense. So Sue, if you could go to the next one. Excuse me. So we looked at a couple different options. I believe last time we were showing the proposed bathroom facility further down the hill. There were some reasons why we looked at it again. We've got the power and the data services going to that existing storage building, which is located up here. And we also had to kind of relook at the placement of the field lighting. So based on those couple conflicts, and also for a utility elevation that makes more sense for the sanitary sewer, we were actually able to create grading and move that facility further up the hill by the driveway. Okay, so there are a couple reasons for that. Actually, I think some of the discussions we had last time, it was actually more advantageous to maybe have it more visible up on top of the hill. So we can still accomplish what we need to as far as handicap accessibility and access from both the track and the bleachers for spectators, whether or not they require ADA access. So I think the location really makes sense as far as where it's planned from that perspective, as well as getting water and sewer utilities to that facility. Okay, so if you could go to the next one. So one of the things I wanted to talk about this evening is I know that it sounds like there's a need potentially for a small concessions window or some type of structure that would help out with fundraising, selling water, selling some refreshments, maybe some booster sales. So in this scenario, we're incorporating a small concessions booth, so to speak, that would be attached to that facility. I think last time when we spoke, looking at some of the numbers as far as trying to get a locker room with a team room out there would be cost prohibitive. But we did want to see if a concessions window would be something that would be discussed or entertained with that facility. We don't have hard, cost estimates at this point. It's more of a discussion as far as what types of things do we think we want to see in that building? Is it just bathrooms or could it be something else? So that's some of the discussions that I was hoping to have this evening. If there is a need, great. If not, we can always just kind of fall back to the bathroom facility only. So I'll kind of open it up if there's any.
I don't know. I wasn't expecting concessions, but I know that would add some cost, but I don't know how that important. You have to like plumbing and things like that, I would say. I don't know how it works, but I remember there's a racetrack in New Jersey. They can't open their concession stand anymore. How the wastewater goes out. I guess it's shared, the bathroom water is shared with the regular water, like it drains all in the same place. I guess they can't do that anymore because of overflows and having these food trucks. So they can't use their concession areas anymore because of how the sewage and the water level. Okay, that's not my area, so how does that, seems to me that would affect the cost.
Well, I guess it kind of depends on what
Sewage.
might be envisioned to be sold or prepared in that. Is it only you're selling bags of chips or
Prepackaged.
peanuts or
As
you know,
opposed to-
prepackaged items or?
as opposed to on the premises. Okay.
So from what I'm hearing, there's a pop-up tent or some type of, mobile unit that comes for events to set up and sell goods or sell refreshments. So, we just wanted to see if there's any need or reason to have a more permanent structure out there.
Given the distance from the other fields, I'm not sure, it seems like if, baseball, for example, wanting to sell concessions, they would still need to set up a pop-up. That's pretty far away.
That's the baseball field out on Greenwood Avenue out there, we call that. That's the freshman field, so they don't sell concessions out there. Softball never sells concessions. Track does occasionally, boys lacrosse does, and I know girls lacrosse does
Okay,
at the middle school. So they would be the main ones at that facility that would do that.
okay.
Softball, if they wanted to probably do something, they could set up a table near that area. But that area is so big, I don't think you could put a building somewhere that would accommodate everyone. And we're probably not going to put two buildings out there. So I think that's the best option, to put at least a roll-up door. They come up, they buy their hoagies ahead of time, a couple pizzas. That's what they're vending out of there. We're not going to make French fries, hot dogs, those kind of things. I think it's more of prepackaged, soda, Powerade, Gatorade, water, those kind of things.
John, one thing you have to worry about if you're gonna do concessions is, if you're not cooking, you don't have to worry about the grease trap. If you're just selling packaged food, you're fine. Anything more than that, that's where your water gets into play.
Josh, the building that's there, what happens to that? So we were talking about storage.
Yeah, so this existing building, that will contain electrical, it does now, electrical service going out to the track. And that will be bolstered as part of what we're doing with lighting and sound systems and stuff as part of the summer project. So other than those sort of incidental improvements, right now, there's nothing planned long-term for the building. We did talk at one point about extending an awning off the back for storage timber hydrant pads, I believe.
Right. And we were looking for some more secured, waterproof storage that we could put football equipment in there in the off seasons and high jump pits, things like that, so they weren't continually getting wet in the winter months when they weren't being used and just becoming rusty and to the point where we'd have to buy new equipment every so many years. So we were looking for just a covered storage with chain link fence that we could secure that, if that was possible off the back.
Yeah. And at a minimum, I think the roof needs to be replaced, and also there's a ceiling within this structure that has had some water damage. I think that would need to be replaced at a minimum.
We thought our guys were gonna.
We did repair the roof leak in there and make that repair to the inside ceiling.
As far as any other replacements, with any siding, overhead door, with that type of stuff, that's not really been
Is that something we can do, Tim?
Well, we were discussing at the very least, we were gonna put new shingles on that entire roof and, repaint or maybe put aluminum fascia and soften it, just spruce the building up. I mean, as far as the overhang, it's something our guys could do, and the pad in the back. Absolutely,
Right now, we have a lot of metal equipment, steel equipment that sits out.
yeah.
All those pads from the track have to get shipped all over the district to be stored. And then it's not ideal because we're shipping it off-site to be stored in the off-season.
I'm just, we're talking, not worried about holding anything up and doing that and going with your plan. What we can add on to it and how we see fit, even that road, our guys, it's just material cost. I think we should look at that. Put that into the budget.
Josh, if you're looking for additional input on the Sessions Street area, I think it would probably be, and not like the board weighing in on the entire board, but it would probably come in at whatever your square footage cost is on top of the restroom thing. Because you're not putting anything else in there, right? So it would just be a matter of whenever, you get the square footage amount and the cost on it, then, the full board gets the input and has to make a decision, I guess.
Okay, so as we were kind of assembling the plan with the bleachers, I think I've mentioned recently that the construction market as a whole nationally is extremely busy at this point. That coupled with some of the raw material rising costs and lead times really put us in a difficult situation with the bleachers. So again, it's a 300-seat bleacher system that we planned. That, as recently as just a few weeks ago, would have had a 6-month lead time from placement of order to delivery of material on site, 6 months. Okay, so obviously we're looking at this as a phase 2 portion of the work. Depending on how quickly we can, get these decisions pulled together, we could be out to bid late summer for the spring timeframe. Or if we do need some more time to talk about any other options, if we're out to bid by, say, October, that would still put us in a fine window to get it completed for the summer timeframe next year. Again, assuming that 6-month lead time frame is not going to change. Okay.
What about pulling together, the numbers and everything, when we have that June, July?
Yeah. The other thing is just the overlap of the other work that's happening this summer. I think would have been very difficult to get that building established, graded, with all the other electrical utilities that are happening from new lights and fiber optics and that kind of stuff. And, we could always do a bid alternate also, Mr. Chango, as far as understanding those costs. So the preference obviously would be the bathroom facility, leave the rest of the existing facility under the care of Mr. Case and his department, or should we include improvements as well to the storage?
Sounds like
The only thing, Josh, that we would need for my department to do that is some type of drawing that we could pull permit from township for just the footers and things like that. We definitely need some type of drawing that has a architectural stamp on it.
So we're gonna take out
I think we just want to be cautious how far
I'm
we're
presenting at the end and I have a PowerPoint to show. Can I send it to you or to get it up on the screen? Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions for the high school before we go on? All right, we will bounce over to Palmer. A couple things to
It's just-
change
if I-
since we
Oh, gosh.
It's gonna pull it up right now, but yeah, I'll have to get it when we get it. So
Okay.
I was gonna say if you could airdrop it to me, 'cause you can do that.
several months
But
ago, we
I
applied
can't
for
hold an airdrop right now.
grant.
Okay.
So just email it,
The Alternative
STEM-S
Energy Program Grant. You might remember
at
that we were successful in getting that at Paxanusa.
eastonsd.org.
Typically, the grants were up to $2 million. I think what the state
Yes.
has done recently is instead of maxing out your potential amount, they're carving them up and distributing them to more projects and kind of spreading the wealth, so to speak. So even though Palmer was eligible for up to $2 million,
Send it to an
we
alley
were
probably
successful
every
in
day,
getting the
but
grant
Oh, she's not here.
for
Okay.
$1.3 million. So
Okay.
again, the caveat with that is it needs to be designed and constructed to achieve LEED Gold certification. Okay. Another thing that's happened, which is a little bit of a fly in the ointment, Pennsylvania has adopted a newer building code than was in effect when Palmer first was under design. So if we had followed the Cheston schedule, we would have been fine. We're to the point now where the 2015 code adoption has kicked in, and there are implications with respect to energy code, a whole host of subcodes that are under that international building code. So I know that Randy and his team need to go back and reevaluate what that means from a constructability design perspective. Obviously, we'll take a look at any budget impacts with that as well. Okay, so another item on the agenda was maybe just to start talking about the existing contents in Palmer and how they could be handled as far as what might be reused elsewhere in the district, how to handle any other loose items, if it's going to be an auction, what types of items need to be salvaged, preserved by the district. So, basically to kind of lay the groundwork for once that building is ready to start, so to speak, that it's empty and ready for the first phase, which would be the environmental abatement, asbestos, PCBs, that kind of stuff. Okay. So you can see some of the loose contents in the classrooms, as well as maybe a more built-in item such as the mosaic you see at the top right there. So Bob, you can just kind of
Yeah, when I'm talking about that, when we talk about the asbestos thing, some of this work can start at any point, right?
the construction work. It would really, the building itself would really have to be cleaned out because a lot of the asbestos is going to be floor
If
tile.
it was clean today, you can start tomorrow. That's the question.
Without following the bidding process.
Right.
Well, no, I mean, the final design obviously still needs to.
Okay, so there's time in here. Is what I'm getting.
There is, yeah,
Okay.
there is.
Because then, as we look at it, the thing is, actually, yes, going in and, considering an option to get rid of the items, it's not that you're gonna make a lot of money, but then it becomes a bigger process of who's going to get stuff and everything,
All right.
and letting them clean it out, because you'll find, particularly when you run some of the
Because I
auctions,
already had
the auctioneer will bid the classroom and say, okay, everything in the
No, I
classroom,
need,
that'll
Josh, I
be the
need
desks,
to,
teacher desks, everything.
but now
And
it's
then
different.
that, they'll come in and they'll clean out that room, and then the next one comes in and cleans out a room. Now, do they do it? No. So you're still left with stuff like that. But this way, we don't have to have our people cleaning these rooms out and everything else that goes along with it. You'll get some people that'll come in and they're gonna say they want the light fixture, or that they're going to take that out, so obviously power gets cut at that point. So there's all varying scenarios of what's going to be done when Austin year comes through, and what I do with you to give you the idea. As can, pick and choose. Now, on the items you want to keep, obviously the auctioneer has them off the list, so he's not selling. But then, they should be the items that you're keeping within the district or something.
Is there board policy that dictates disposal of equipment?
There is policy.
Okay.
We should look at that.
Correct.
The other thing is too, I asked around, I'm hearing that we're going to engage in services of an auctioneer, which is a policy. Not here, I'm hearing a recommendation. Also, there's,
Fee or percentage?
yeah, but there's also, I did a survey around the county, two organizations that have websites do this. There's a Missy Bid and public surplus. So, you know, we put that stuff in there. It meets the requirements of the policy, the bidding laws and everything else. But we need to have that conversation. But I know there are classrooms that are cleaned out. Since the students left, we've had some leaks in the classrooms. And so I guess we cleaned out, a lot of the rooms. So a lot of that area is cafeteria, and there's desks, so
In both
Those,
buildings?
those pictures are misleading. The classrooms are virtually empty. Our people have gone, absolutely, our people have gone through it, sorted furniture,
Sorted that we can keep it and use it? And use it?
yes, and also sorted in an effort to decide what should go. So we've been very busy with it.
there's also been some requests, for desks at the middle school for the Palmer students, too big. And so they've gotten some furniture from the Palmer school over to the middle school.
Right, but we're here reusing that. I'm talking stuff we wouldn't reuse. Because, again, let somebody, let the others clean it out. Don't, why waste our manpower?
I think there's a lot of, unless they get some taken out, there's a lot of Eagle Scout projects and always.
That's what.
Is that all
Classrooms.
costs?
Yeah, well, that stuff should go. I mean, they should be taking that out.
And I think that's what Josh does.
I'm really looking to.
Well, I think what we've been doing there, Palmer, is what we've been pretty much doing in the other locations. Tim, you and Dale have been deploying the guys.
So we've done quite a bit at Palmer's, Bob. This is what we did. At Palmer School right now, we emptied out basically every classroom into the two cafeterias. All right, so all the student desks are stacked in there, nice and neat. All the chairs are stacked according to whether they're small, medium, or large. A lot of furniture did move up to the campus for Palmer School because when they determined that they're going to be there for 2 or more years or 2 years, that some of the furniture up there was a little bit too large for those kids to be in for that length of time. So some of that furniture got moved. One of the other things we did, there was a lot of very nice oak Formica tables that we had a lot of those also in the little Paxinosa gym. So we actually put all those tables into an area at Pax where we were planning on putting the clinic. So now if anybody asks for a very nice 3 foot by 5 foot or 3 foot by 8 foot table, they're all in one spot. But we
That's
did
fine.
isolate that. And the reason that we did that was because both Dale and I were concerned that one day y'all were going to come and say, okay, they're going to start taking the asbestos floor tile out. You need to get rid of the furniture. So we were a little proactive in getting it all at 2 locations where, whether it be an auctioneer or whatever, could come in and they can visually see all the furniture. It's just stacked neatly in those 2 areas. And we did go around with Meredith, and we took some of the pictures that the kids have made over the years, the art classes, and took them to where Palmer is located now at the campus for preservation. The other thing we did was we had a lot of furniture in the small Paxinosa gym as far as student desks. We actually took those to Palmer School because we have a group that's going to start using that small gym at Paxinosa for the community. So that was another thing that was done.
Okay, yeah, we're not talking about the stuff you want to keep, we're talking about the stuff to get rid of. So we ought to learn a lesson too then for Cheston as well. Okay, remove the stuff you plan to keep and put it wherever you plan to keep it. And then look at how do we dispose of it, which again has to be done prior to, okay, demolishing the building, which includes asbestos abatement and everything else. So it sounds like we should start moving on that. Now, I know we have to do timing because I know there's various organizations that want to use that building before it gets demolished as well.
Right. And that's another reason why we didn't waste time, because we've had several requests to use the building for
I
training.
don't think I'm getting callers.
Yeah, my understanding was they wanted the stuff in the classroom. You didn't hear the same thing?
I don't think anybody said they wanted it inside the building. I was,
You know, they've been doing some training, and nothing came back to say, hey, would you like to make furniture?
Okay.
I didn't hear that even before.
I would just think before we start engaging or talking about auctioning off stuff, if the board policy dictates surplus, service companies or whatever, that's what the policy dictates. We should follow that policy first, and it'd probably save us a lot of money when you put it out there, because all they're gonna do is take a look at it and tell you what they want, and come and get it. So, I mean, whatever that dictates, and once that's exhausted, then, we go to step 2 as to how we have to get rid of stuff that we're not.
When you're saying service company, so they take it and they sell it.
Well, they give you
They
money
pay
for
you.
it.
They pay. You don't have to go through the bidding, they actually give us a check for what they're going to take and sell them.
But is it worth, I mean, does it say you can't use an auction?
No, well, I don't know, I'm looking at the cost.
So we may want to bring a couple auctioneers in, get,
Yeah, do that first.
Yeah, I mean, all the expenses on them. They give you the money for whatever they're taking, and then whatever the market value is, and then they use their own manpower to come and pick it up, and get rid of it. And then what's ever left, I think we then have to decide as to what avenue, we can dispose of it.
or compare the two. Because if you find out through an auction, you can get $4. In other words, I'll give you 5,000 through the auction, they're going to say, you're going to get about 10 or 12, make a decision.
I don't think there'll be that much left. I think,
We're saving that much?
well, I don't know that there's some things that are not.
What?
The video is still the same, it's just a PDF.
Oh, there's two
I don't
things.
think we're gonna get.
It's video and a PDF.
You'd be surprised, people take some of it, just like on the, the dust and everything, sometimes they're metal.
Well, that might be, there's, an interest in the metal, desks for home use.
Oh, no, they don't do it for that. They come and they get it for the purpose of sound. Yeah, it's scrap. Yeah, scrap.
Market for scrap metal is down
Josh,
considerably.
that, fireplace that's in, room, Randy, yeah, Ron,
George, you're saying, we need to bring this up to the board.
Well, I think we still have to get some additional information in the options laid down. I would hope you would do it by the next committee meeting in May, so we can have further discussion. I haven't seen any policy.
I'm looking for.
Yeah, I'm looking keyword like disposal, sale.
It might be on the,
Yeah.
financing of the bidding.
yeah, it could be under another.
I think once we find it, send it out.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm just doing some keyword searches. I'm not gonna- We're gonna have to dig a little further.
I mean, obviously, we should stay on top of this and get moving, so that when they get ready to go, we're not in the way. And do we have dates when all the other organizations that want to use the facility are going to be done?
Bill O'Malley for the, yes, committee schedule.
So we can get the dates.
Yeah, I mean, when we're ready to demolish that building, and we start bidding and put that together, we just say, okay, no longer do so. And I think it, with this training, with the other local law enforcement agencies, they're gonna use that as much as they can.
There are some activities that won't necessarily impact on the structure, but I'm told there are other activities that impact physically, so we're trying to coordinate that.
There's just one other thing that I know Josh is aware of, that Palmer School is the lifeline for the maintenance shop. So if Palmer comes down before we get water, electric, and gas, we're all gonna be sitting in trucks trying to stay warm.
And
With the
internet
engines running.
and network.
Internet. So there are some things that have to happen before the wrecking ball comes in.
Yeah, and we've been in touch with the utility companies. In fact, there's a new document that's included on the civil engineer's design for relocation of utilities. Okay, so that covers it as far as anything other than Cottingham. And I know that Joe and Randy had a separate content presentation that they would like to look at, so, we'll go over that one. Just,
Okay.
Quick, we had 40 slides. I don't have a clicker, so please move
these are essential.
So this is really just a quick update. Last week, I guess just Monday.
Yeah.
The zoning. We were at the zoning hearing board, City of Houston, where they approved us for a couple of zoning variances for the, just in the press box being a couple of feet higher than the existing and some increase in impervious coverage. Just for everyone's reference, there's a plan that shows you the scope of work as it relates to the neighborhood, and you'll see that this hasn't changed much. We're still proposing work on 12th Street with the new entrance, new grandstands for all-day visitors. There are identical concession stands at 3 corners, and then there's a second booth here on 11th, which we're going to show you the plan of that in a minute, and also has a little piece attached to it. So if you're wondering what the overall scope is, if you look at this drawing, you see that. And you can see that and how it relates to the neighborhood here.
So you said a piece attached, referring to the sale of clothing. Yes.
We're showing you a large plan here. So. It looks a little fuzzy, choppy, but okay, so this is the floor plan of the entire facility. So if you're going to enter here in the center and you go left to right. Left, like you go to the home stands, you circulate past the new concession stand, under the grandstands, move on to where you can see this purple area here on each side of the men's room, and women's room is in pink. You have to talk up a little bit. Oh, sure. The women's room is in pink. And the blue area, the teal area is mechanical. And this gray area here on each side is for storage. So there's a good amount of storage throughout this entire facility. The same goes for the visitors grandstands. There's the purple on men's. I'll show you an enlarged version of this in a minute. And pink is the female. And storage is in the centers. That's how the seats lay out. That's how the seats lay out, and the seating count, I believe we're capacity of about 5,500 for the entire stadium. And that's the visitors grandstand as well. Is there any more plans in the photo room? Well, those are not, this update's off, we gotta go back and try to make those. So we zoom in to this area here.
Which area, Jeff?
Home stands. Home stands right here.
In here?
Just this. So, like you would at any stadium, when you do use the facilities here, there will be plenty, unlike today. All of these little hashes here are the toilets, and then they're separated by a wall. On the opposite side of the wall are the seats. So there won't be a cluster when you're in there, or when you're circulating through. You'll enter the men's room, you go to the urinals or the toilets, you circle out, hit the sinks, and then come out the outdoor and you do that at each one. So it should flow nice and well. Everyone should be able to get in and out really fast. People should not be congregating like they do today here in the corners. You can see an enlarged version of the storage rooms. So there's plenty of storage in this facility. And then these are the handicap ramps that take you up to the grandstand. So is the same sort of condition here for the visitors. There's a ton of toilets. I don't remember the exact numbers, but probably it's a little over 8. And that's a requirement. You zoom in. You see the press box here. There's a stair that takes you up to a platform above the press box, which has a covered lid on it. So that's where the TV cameras will be. And here is where the coaches will sit for the meeting. And then we added a visitors coaches area, which is just a platform that for visitors, visiting coaches to sit so they can stay out of the press box. That is not a press box, it's just a platform. There's a couple.
Thank you. Exactly, seating too. So the seating now, I know we talked about different measurements and everything. Your count though is based on the standard measurement, not the increase measurement.
That is right.
So it's just that when we come to actually doing the work, there will actually be.
Right, the building code requires us to calculate the capacity of the beach.
That's what I'm saying.
And that capacity, the reason for that is because that capacity is what's going to be used for buildings. So it makes it
What we do otherwise.
is for business. The field house, you're looking at a plan here of the lower level. So this would be the entrance off of 11th Street. We are obviously keeping that structure, renovating it, and I want to say we put a lot of time and thought into this with the administration to make sure that everyone who uses the facility is captured in their spatial requirements. So the lower level, you'll enter up top and circulate down through the stairs. There's a security office here. There's an events office, and check-in here for volunteers. Down the hallways, the AD's office and ticket staff, so they have a secure space during meetings. There's a toilet room that's accessible for everyone. There's a cheer storage room, records room, and then there's the cheerleading locker room on the end. The double door now, I think they used the tax office. Entrance here before. We're going to keep that just because it's there. But the cheerleaders will have lockers, mirrors, and toilet facilities dedicated just for them. And if you see where they're at now, you'll know that that's a major upgrade.
Randy, does that have to be a double door for them? I mean, I'm just asking.
Well, we can talk about that.
Okay.
We're looking at, we're trying to watch the masonry, like, patching. So then there is an elevator where we have to keep that in the facility here. And then a mechanical room, which exists today. And then we're adding an officials locker room. And there are 2. And now, and those locker rooms have showers and toilets. And there's a small IT room. Any questions? After that. It would be the smallest thing possible. And then upstairs, we're giving the visiting team nothing. We're reconfiguring the stairs so that it's a little more up to today's standards. Right now, if you walk down, it's a little dangerous. We're also adding this sort of vestibule area so that when you're coming upstairs, when you're a cheerleader, you can't see directly into the locker rooms and shower rooms, trainer rooms, kind of like the end. So we are taking care of that. We'll come in the trainer's room here, which has training tables and some stainless steel cabinetry, which is shower area. And then we walk into the team room, which is the home team. There's the coach's meeting room, and the locker room here for the football team. So each kid will have space within the locker room. So there's going to be this area here with the whiteboard, so the entire team can congregate and there's also some cabinetry and a countertop here for them to put the bottles and things like that. And then over at the visitor side, it's really just an open box. Whatever, I'm not sure, but it's toilets, a shower, and a home coaches slot.
We're gonna have some benches in there and stuff, and then wait for it for them as well.
Yeah, if you ever then we'll have, we are putting an addition on that building, which is this small box here. We have to do that to accommodate all the lockers. And there will be an exit here. If the coach wants to use that exit, or they can go out and see it. We started to look a little bit at the architecture of the building and how we can enhance it. And so we just started looking here and thinking that we're likely to stain the brick, so it's a little darker color, or just the charcoal, and we can put some accents around the existing windows, and put new letters on with the name of the buildings, and then plaid addition into brick without panel, just so it would be a little different than the building. And then we would bring sort of this architectural language into the rest of the small buildings around the stadium concession. That's as far as we got with it. So we're here to get you feedback. So we have a lot of marrying architectural dreams with budgets. So we kind of paused here to get feedback on that. That's all that's. That's a quick update. If I missed anything, let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them. Questions, comments?
Which is scheduled. What schedule would you propose? Because obviously, you gotta get everything moving to the beginning of November. For the most part, right?
That's the idea. I think Josh would like a June, mid-September.
The July board meeting is when I'd like to make the award, bid awards.
And that's
Is that patio lit, that's at the old entrance, that coming out, they can smooth out, what are you doing with that? When you walk in, the entrance now to the field, it's a lit, is that all disappearing?
No, which is raised. Right now,
It's
about-
raised.
It's about an 8 or 10 inch step to get up onto the patio before you go in.
Oh, onto the.
Right.
Going into the
Yeah.
field house.
Yeah, is that all gonna get broke up?
That'll all get leveled.
And the plaques we have there for people, they're gonna get put back up?
We can figure that out, but I think the answer is yes, but we have not thought about that. Is there anyone who's not liking the direction that we took here?
Now, you need to have Josh to talk more about timeline. Big, all that stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's April 17th, so, I mean, if Randy needs any final design input, I mean, pretty much, if there's any design feedback tonight that can be provided, it's really critical that he gets it, because, 2 months, we need to be to the point where this is being issued for bidders, so.
These were two issues, right? That we know of at least. One issue, we had talked about whether we thought of putting advertising signs up behind the stadium.
Behind the stands.
Behind the stands, sorry. Yeah, behind the stand, whether to do it on the home and the visitor side, or just the visitor side so that the home people are facing it. And the other one ends up being the scoreboard, size, position, and things like that. So those are the two big items that I know of. Josh, is there anything else?
The concessions, we're basically assuming planning for identical concessions. Stands, same footprint for all of them. Planning for, grease interceptors, for fryers and that type of thing, but, I don't know that we've really looked at the overall floor plan of the concessions stands to determine that that's what we're doing, and this is what to equip it with, and that they're all the same.
Right now, we haven't designed anything specific inside the concession stand. We assume that they're gonna have an 8-foot hood, 4-foot griddle, fire, and, stand-up fridge. Freezer. And some more tables.
What are you doing? What are you talking about putting there?
Talking about the concession stands, looking at them each the same way. Okay, so they're 3 identical buildings. And each one would have an 8-foot hood, commercial kitchen hood, with like a 4-foot grill, and a 2-foot fryer, and maybe some other small table with some table equipment, a hot dog roller and more.
But you won't need if you get, you won't need the hot dog rollers if you go with the grill and the fryers. You won't need the roller. Because you cook the hot dogs on the grill. At the same. If we wanted, we could pick it up ourselves. You wouldn't need it then. Could you save money if you made 2 concession stands instead of 3?
Well, you can save money, it's a matter of accommodating crowds.
You make them bigger, you do, make them a little bit bigger, you do better. If you put one on 11th Street, and one at 12th Street by the church, where you already set up to go back to it. Eliminate the one by the parking lot. You go back to the drawing room.
Just for that little bit.
Yes. If you make the one upper right-hand corner and the one in the left-hand corner, if you make those bigger, and eliminate the one on to the left, save yourself some money, make them bigger. You would get the crowd, the home crowd, and you would get the visitors.
Would that cause you problems maybe with crowd circulation?
That's what we were hoping to
Eliminate.
eliminate. Because right now, there is a problem with crowding at the corners.
Yeah, that's why I said if you eliminate that, you won't have that problem about the upper one. You got this corner and this corner.
Well, those
You'll have a
are
bigger
bigger.
crowd.
If you eliminate it, you'll actually give them space to be in.
Okay. Especially that corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the hell corner.
So that was the thought, to disperse that.
The band doesn't come out. They don't, give them the band doesn't come out anymore.
Any other questions or comments? So here's the,
Terry,
Sir,
thinking about your food stand. Currently, you have more than one refrigerator in
I have 2 other machines.
there. Well, that's what I mean.
Yes,
What do you
2 or
want?
3?
2 or 3. All depends.
Yeah.
On the home side, 3. And the away side, 2.
Asking that, so we're sure we have plenty of electric and everything.
You don't need that.
Just see what?
The refreshment stand on the
Yes.
right, top right.
Is that fire hydrant disappearing behind there?
Because you're seeing geographers.
Behind that stand?
It is.
Okay,
I've been watching the Beef.
won't create a problem. Yeah, because you don't need the roller. Talked to Tommy today, he would much rather just go with the grill, the deep fryers, and whatever else. That's it.
it's fine, so we're just gonna plan it to plug a roller in, so. we'll have-
Yeah. A lot of outlets.
Yes.
You'll need a roller, you still have the additional space to do.
Yes.
Yeah. Pre-made fries.
Give or take, the serving windows are gonna be bigger in the new one than they are today.
Serving windows are, I think, as big as we can economically make them. So I want to say that. Next, we got you.
212 is down what we got now. And the boosters are going in with the ticket booth, not the concession stand. Am I correct when I heard you said that? The boosters clothing sales going in with the ticket booth?
That's his little this little key here.
Okay.
It's just, the building's just attached to the ticket.
Right.
So you would walk up to it, there's a little door here. That's it.
Now, we're putting a hood in, are we putting fire suppression?
We'll have to put fire suppression.
We have to do it.
While you're on, again, trying to get any direction here. So it's about putting the signs above the stadium. Everything not to, that they can rebuild the structure.
Wouldn't that depend on what you're doing in the school?
No, scoreboard would be separate.
No, but what I'm saying is, if you have the capability to advertise the scoreboard, why would you spend the extra money to put the, capability to have advertising, behind the stands?
Only because those would be permanent, wouldn't be disappearing all the time like the scoreboard. There's no reason. So, and then the other one's the scoreboard. And we've seen the scoreboard. In the Nazareth one, we said that was, we talked about it, 2 panels versus like 3 panels. And just thinking about 3 panels, which is one more than the Nazareth board. Harry, you familiar with the Nazareth board?
Yeah.
We saw some great graphic work. They were very inviting to us, and they put Easton up on the board and everything. They had a lot of varying scenarios, welcoming us and everything else.
You want a scoreboard bigger than Nazareth's?
Yeah.
Is that what it
Yes.
is?
Yep.
Wow. Wow, really?
And it takes staffing to run that, right?
Yeah, you gotta pay people to do that.
And they were explaining to us, the marketing and everything else that they get off of
It's only more expensive.
that. Right. Well, the sales, the advertising has to pay for it.
Let's go back to where the scoreboard is going to be.
Where's it gonna be at?
Right,
Where's it gonna be at?
in the back of the arch, is the last time we got. So it won't be big as that. Or,
Well, or we could put it on the other end of the field. That's a decision point too.
What other,
I
11th
mean,
Street?
well,
The
that's a conversation, but I don't think anybody in the administration wants to throw up a post and a scoreboard on that in the field.
Oh, is that Mike?
He suggested putting it on 11th Street, on its own posts.
And I personally,
I'm not saying it's a suggestion, that's what he just mentioned.
I personally don't know why we have to be bigger than Nazareth, other than Nazareth was accommodating.
Makes no sense.
But it depends what you want to do. Some of the things we heard from Terry, which would benefit both all the booster clubs. They talked about how they could do shout outs and everything, which they haven't started to do yet, which can be running it all the time. They have ads that run across the body. So if you're going to start to divide that up, now you're dividing up the time and everything. The more ads you run, obviously, the more money you get, which ends up paying. And plus, we want to make sure that you have the area set aside for, the score and everything else that's going on with the game. So an additional panel would let you run that type, you'd have the additional room because you don't want to be sitting, 50 yards away from talking in the middle of the field, right? And looking at something that's 6 inches tall.
Well, here's my question. And just as a tax-paying person, you want to put a bigger board in, which means we have to employ someone to run it at a price that you're not going to get away with $15 for a game, because now you're talking about somebody who's technologically savvy to run this thing, because we employ people at Lafayette just to run the damn scoreboard. Is that an expense the board wants to take? That's something you need to think about. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, you want to advertise, it's one thing to advertise. You also have the fence to advertise, if you want to advertise. To make an elaborate scoreboard, because now he's got to go out and hire somebody who is Jimmy, because it's Jimmy AD.
Like they have to do that.
No, you're gonna have to bring somebody in from ITS or wherever to run this thing. You're looking at a lot more money.
Kind of abstract until we actually have dollars. Like, I don't really have any concept of what one is gonna cost versus another based on size or cost to run. So I'm
Kira, I think the other thing is, it's a matter of computerized programs.
Exactly.
Okay, that's right. And Nazareth had one individual that was trained on the computerized programs. That's basically what runs a scoreboard like that.
Exactly, same thing.
I just personally, I mean, I saw Nazareth, I don't know why we would need anything bigger, to be honest with you. Because on the top part, you're always showing the score, down, distance, time, things like that. And then the bottom portion of it can be for your ads or anything else. But that's just my opinion.
They can muffle that way.
I would like to know, who's gonna handle that, like the ads and stuff? Is that something that the business department would secure or write
I
up?
think the policy says athletic
Collecting the
I
money,
was just
like,
checking on.
it's just those kind of things that,
I think,
and then where would that go? Where did that
Jim,
revenue
I
go?
think that all has to be established.
Yeah. Okay, I just want, yeah.
Because you don't have it now like that. I think that all has to be a conversation, and it has to be established.
Okay, let me go back to the size of the scoreboard, because I think we're talking about staff,
What kind of place?
whether you're at a panel or not,
Figure that out.
it's still gonna take somebody to run it.
Right,
Right.
But, that said, I don't know, and I think of the conversation,
Because.
I don't think there's anybody from the administration thinks it's a good idea to put a standalone scoreboard on the pillars at 11th Street. I mean, already let's have from back. And then your entire block.
Yeah, I didn't get to see, go to tour for the Nazareth board, but, did anybody who went get pictures of it or have dimensions? The vendor and the cost, we have all that. Who makes that? I know we were looking at about 6 figures, I think, for some boards and some less, depending on.
They threw a figure out of around 200,000.
And is that,
And that's what they added from Ireland, which were very nice. We got to see where they were able to have middle school students put programs together that they were putting on the board and everything.
okay,
So this became an educational part of the program too. So for high school, they did things that they demonstrated where they have the walk around cameras for doing interviews, again, that students can use. So, and they let the students do it.
so you're talking about a board that's basically video, full video. So,
Yes, it did.
okay.
But-
So that was
And that doesn't matter, the size that, when you fit in the back of the arch. What size is that?
same size as that.
Nazareth scoreboard is 16 feet tall.
25 or 26.
16 by.
And that satisfies everything you talk about, like Nazareth needs as far as advertising, student programs. Yeah,
Yeah.
to me, from my standpoint, taking that away from the back of that arch, the place for it. And the standalone, at the other end of the crowded stadium.
I understand what they did in Nazareth too, when they put it back where the building was, they actually still put the concrete pillars down, I forget how many feet they said, into the ground. That's it.
Yeah,
And,
because that building couldn't support it.
yeah, they don't go back against the building because
I
it's
think
support.
Randy would have to be able to determine the structure of that arch, being able to support that scoreboard.
Yeah.
I mean, that's his area.
Yeah, and the concern there ends up being, and that's what Nazareth ran into, they used to have the scoreboard on the building. But when they went to a new scoreboard, the building doesn't support it anymore, which could be the same thing down the road, because let's face it, this board is not gonna last us 50 years. Probably if you get 15 to 20 years out of it, you're probably looking at a pretty good number. So then if all of a sudden the wall doesn't support it anymore, now you have a new issue.
Well,
And what they do with the board, behind the board, they actually had the fans that are back there for cooling it. So it was not against the wall, it stood out from the wall, so the fans could blow out through it.
You're gonna have that same thing.
you can just extend the wall.
He's gonna have to extend it from the wall, do the same damn thing.
I just think you're ruining the architectural thing that we wanna look at, and that's the arch. by putting up the wall.
Yeah, the appeal of
The
it.
appeal,
Yeah.
I mean, I I don't wanna see the arch from one side. I'll see it as I walk in, when I turn around, I'm gonna see the school board. You know, I just think that it would be better to, you still have to build the structure to support it, because you have to put those beams into the ground. I think they went down like 24 foot.
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
20 feet, yeah,
How much more is that gonna cost?
you gotta, you know,
That'll
it needs
come.
its own structure.
That's gonna come a cost. A lot of cost.
Well, that's where they said their total in was. Yeah. Again, maybe not, there's a little more advertising than we can. And if they test, well, then no one, we're not looking at the same.
What kind of room?
I got a stupid question. Is there gonna be any kind of protection in front of it?
Yes,
Because they're going to be kicking field goals.
yeah. No matter where it's at, there's a net that goes up in front of it, and then the net would stay up.
And then that's gonna be on the track. Like we got the college.
Again, whatever you decide, I've made it no more than once that just know what the repair is. We know that kids in the neighborhood have gotten into Cottingham. We've had some things vandalized a little bit, that if someone does throw a rock at it or do something, what is that repair and how is that done? What is that turnaround, should that occur in that area?
You're in the middle of the city.
That's something just to be aware of. I've never looked into that. I don't know what other schools do. That's something to
Yeah,
possibly
like
compare.
plexiglass kind of cover that manufacturer that won't distort the image.
I'd have to look into it, Ron.
Yeah, I'm sure some, maybe just do it scores, one that's doing video, you know, a cover with really big. Plexiglass cover up to please. Yeah, the weather, it would have to really.
I didn't take any
The
photos.
weather's gonna yellow it. Yeah,
No
like
one's putting in traditional scoreboards anymore. When I say traditional, digital.
Bulbs.
Yeah.
No.
No one's doing that anymore, is that fair to say? They're all going to,
digital.
yeah, digital. But I'm referring to the type of scoreboard we have now, nobody's,
Because they're all.
Then is there room back there?
They're making money.
On the street side?
Say what?
But you're right, I mean, and you.
That's a question, that's a
The only thing I don't know what the daylight looks like, or the lighting on that, when the sun goes down over top of the Axnosa building,
I found a picture.
that sun shining on it on 11th Street may have a good bit of reflection that you won't see the board. Currently at the high school, we get that when we have early afternoon games and day games, that the way the sun comes up from the east, from the New Jersey side, as that comes up, you can't see the scoreboard at the high school because of that light. So when the sun is coming down and that light is going over and hitting on 11th Street, what does that reflection do to the brightness of it versus you're seeing the dark side of that if it's on 12th Street?
Well,
That's just something, I don't know with the digital boards, what that
they
view
have
looks like.
automatic focus and automatic brightness. So it'll adjust itself.
They actually did that for us while we were there, because we went up there at the time so that the sun was shining on it. And so we watched it as the sun was setting and it would change accordingly.
Very high tech.
Questions, comments?
Well, I think the first question is.
That's what I'm saying, if you put on 11th Street, you're not gonna see that until the sun's completely down. Yes. If you're being correct.
I think we also have, I would just offer up that the neighbors on 11th Street be, I think, very upset to wake up every day to the back of a large scoreboard.
As funny as it sounds, they've actually asked me to keep the buses parked down near the field house because of that stretch of houses there where those people are out every night. And I know they don't buy a ticket, but they're loyal. They even paint their porch red, white, and black, that they're out there every game supporting us and rooting for the team. I'd hate to cut them out in that aspect, but minor, major, I'm not sure.
Especially like an open lot behind there too, because if it's, we're, off center a little bit where the open lot is.
Yeah, I'm not sure about
So it sounds like, obviously, more discussion again, getting pricing. Randy, maybe you can look at the design on both pieces, what it may look like. Is there anything else?
Aren't you getting yourself up against the wall? More discussion, you're running out of time.
Well, it looks like we're gonna have a May meeting, a June meeting.
Well, it is, right?
Oh, no, he said July.
Have the big
We have
meeting.
to have a couple meetings.
Whatever we need to get answers, because we need them, like now.
What's important with the time frame is the precast. And getting that in production so that not only do they start right after football season, but they can start erecting right after.
Well, we can look at our first regular committee meeting, and just only focus on that for the stadium, for these couple of issues. And then we can do a second one like this again later, May. And then wrap it up, because we don't have to do.
Our only issue is the scoreboard.
Well,
I need to,
we may take that one. You have the scoreboard, we can also have the advertising. I know we're saying we don't want to do the advertising.
Well, it depends on what you do with the scoreboard.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have the scoreboard that does the advertising, then I truly don't think you
You need both.
gain anything, to be honest with you, on the advertising behind the stands.
I mean, the people that are gonna use the facility would like to see the scoreboard stay on 12th Street. The football coach, myself, being there for all those years, the history of it, I think being above that arch in the back of it, you're still gonna see the arch. I think it's great with the school, the way that fits there and that whole atmosphere. You have the houses, which is it's unique to high schools today. Most high schools today are in the suburban area of their district. They're on their school property, and this is unique that we have the houses there, the fans that stand there along the sidewalks. I think by putting the scoreboard there, just does something maybe that doesn't attract to what we're about, at least in football, and that tradition down there.
The only other school in my mind thinks that still has inner city stadium is Bevan School District. Allentown is set off to the side. If you put that scoreboard down on 11th Street, you're cluttering up that end. Look at your drawing. Now you gotta put in 4 or 5 pylons are gonna be up in the air. You do better putting it where it is right now.
One of the other things that Mr. Galliano made his initial presentation of the stadium, it was all about where you come in, where the gate is now, that area was kept open, so that you could visually look through the stands, see what was going on in the stadium, and then also see the colorful, different landscape of those homes in the background, right? Am I correct, Randy? Isn't that one of the things you had mentioned?
Yeah.
That it's just unique to having that stadium in the city of Easton.
I'd like to see a rendition of what it looked like.
can we do that for the May 9th meeting? And maybe make give them a decision?
Yeah.
And we do a rendition and a cost difference?
Josh.
Yeah, so as far as the cost summary, we can certainly do the, construction of it, as long as the board is happy with some type of look at potential advertising and, the other aspect of it. But we can certainly do the construction of it.
I think May 7th, whatever that to be.
But, and really talking about what the construction is, if it's per se in front of the arch or the other end. I mean, basically, the construction's gonna be about the same.
Well, it's, right now we're planning it to be bolted down into the block. I think we're doing the other side, probably still frame it up.
Thing is, you have to find out about the fans because they said the fans blow out the back.
I can, on May 7th or whatever, we'll show you. Details, so it's flush with the brick. So the space between the brick and the block. It's kind of going, it fits right. We'll show you.
My question on the scoreboard, repairs down the front and the back of it.
Right.
Okay.
The key is, again, 10, 15 years down the road, they have to replace it. What if it doesn't fit? I mean, that's part of what matters. Yeah, it's not. There's only one thing. Okay, so we'll have that for the first May meeting?
Yes.
Then we can decide if we need to. Now we're down to Cunningham Phase 2. This came up. Meg, do you want to address some of the issue? And do with the parking lot? You worried about what's going to happen there, if we're going to do anything?
Right, so we're looking at bringing in, brand new beautiful stadium. We should talk about what we would like to see with the adjacent lot there, the basketball court, the parking, and Vanderveer Park, how we want to see it utilized, taking into consideration that it might see some damage as a result of the construction as well. I'm not sure what the staging area will be, but there might be a need to overhaul anyway, and so what we want it to look like when it's done, start talking about that and planning it concurrently with the stadium project.
Where is the staging for the, you plan to have the stadium?
It's a basketball court, so.
Yes. The parking lot would be an ideal location.
The whole parking lot,
Yes.
right, not the courts.
Not off the bat, I would pick the courts as the
And
first
not
option.
the park is not going to be affected.
No, we try to keep it on paved surfaces.
Well, that may be real important to not block the basketball courts during construction. It's at all possible. I don't know how much they're used. Well, they would be from April until August. They would be used a lot. So we wouldn't want to use the basketball courts for staging.
I'm thinking there's probably going to be rain.
Yeah.
In the middle of the parking lot at some point.
Yeah.
The breakfast. And we'll pick from the street, from the tall street, we'll pick over. Or maybe they'll pick from the parking lot. The way these precast pieces come, it's like a truck standing in the street waiting, one picks, moves up, so I don't know. Certainly will be a crane there.
At some point during that slapping area, you're not gonna be able to let the kids be on the basketball court anyway, because they're gonna be lifting those slabs up with heavy cranes. And they're probably gonna come from that area to get it over, to get to the home side. So at some point, a couple days, it's gonna have to be shut down.
So the other part of this was, Jared's at the last meeting, I understand Amy's going to present this on tonight. We're at that point, because we're getting close to 6. And so what you're telling us tonight is what some of your thoughts were and the uses of this area and what you're looking at.
Yes, so,
Oh,
just
sorry.
the play from the beginning. I can click on here. Wonderful, thank you. So I'm the manager of the newly created Westward Community Initiative. So thank you for letting me speak tonight about the neighborhood plan and its connection to the school district's capital project here. GEDP began this effort in spring of 2018, and we hired a consultant to oversee the planning process. We established a steering committee, which included neighborhood stakeholders, city officials,
and residents. Principal Jones and Janine Stan Lewis represented Paxinosa throughout the process as well. We looked at the entire West Ward area, which you can see the boundaries highlighted in red up there. It's over 60 square blocks and home to nearly 10,000 of the city of Easton's 27,000 residents. As I mentioned, the neighborhood is residentially dense. Nearly 4,000 housing units exist in this neighborhood. A quarter of the neighborhood's population is children, 19 or under, so you're looking at about 2,500 kids in the West Ward. Working with the consultant, we set out to engage residents, businesses, and property owners in the neighborhood. We were looking for projects, both large and small, that the community felt would improve the neighborhood. Defining these allows us to build programming around those initiatives, gives me a job, and we find funds and partners to make those projects happen as well. We spoke with organizations that work or are located within the neighborhood, along with neighborhood institutions like the Easton Area Community Center and Paxinosa Elementary School. We held several interview sessions along with several community meetings. Community meetings and conversations ask questions like, what's your big idea for this particular area? How would you improve this piece of the neighborhood? What's your vision for the West Ward? Or where do you hang out? From that, we developed our community vision statement. So I'll read this quickly for you. The historic West Ward is a colorful, safe, and desirable neighborhood, fully integrated into Easton's vibrant urban fabric. Residents have direct and affordable access to excellent education and training opportunities, local jobs, and support services. Neighborhood amenities are connected by a system of improved sidewalks, bicycle routes, and tree-lined streets. The West Ward's cherished parks and open spaces host many of the community's unique events and art installations that draw visitors and showcase local creativity. In a neighborhood that champions diversity, equality, and inclusion, residents are fully engaged and invested in the well-being of the community. Residents of all colors, backgrounds, cultures, ages, faiths, and incomes are proud to call the West Ward home and work together to make it a neighborhood of choice. Based on the feedback, we mapped key focus areas, which you can see here. There are several. Paxinosa and Cottingham Stadium areas were earmarked as centers for neighborhood recreation and also to strengthen the neighborhoods surrounding that area as well. You'll also note a green highway of sorts, connecting all the small pocket parks to larger parks, trails, and open space. From this, we also have guiding principles and their related themes were developed here. There's a half dozen of these. If you go into the detail of the plan, all the themes of several recommended projects, they name potential lead partners and steps for implementation. Conversations about Cottingham Stadium and Vanderveer Park were directly linked to the open space and public amenities section and also to the education and equity sections as well. So just to give you a little background, as we talk about green space and open space in the West Ward, there really is not a lot of it. We have 6 smaller pocket parks, which are just small lots. They're typically grass covered. They really do not have ADA accessibility, and they're not large enough for playground equipment. Beyond that, Dutchtown Park, which sits just outside of downtown, it's terraced on a hill and has seating and playground equipment. Next in size would be Centennial Park, which has basketball courts, a playground, and a pavilion. It's about the size of a quarter block, and I would equate it to what the amenities and size that you have at Vanderveer as well. There's also walking paths within the Easton Cemetery, and they also connect down to the Carl Sterner Arts Trail. So Easton has about 152 acres of park space with a population of 27,000. That's a little less than 6 acres per 1,000 residents. American Planning Association recommends 1 acre of city park or playground per 100 people, plus acreage outside of the city. That would be a larger area, like your Hackett's Park, like we have there. One of the top community challenges that neighborhoods stated as we went through the planning process was lack of accessibility and well-maintained neighborhood parks, which we all recognize. During our community engagement sessions, we heard ideas like activities at Vanderveer Park and other pocket parks, better resident access to Cottingham Stadium, Cottingham Stadium improvements, park activities, park features for a diversity of ages, public event and film screenings at Cottingham Stadium, space to hold community activities. We also spoke to a group of high schoolers from the neighborhood, and they gave us feedback that the top places they hang out are at parks or at sporting events or practice. As teenagers, they cited physical activities, accessibility to gyms, and places to hang out as opportunities that are missing within the neighborhood. As you can tell, parks are important to the West Ward and their quality of life. This is a trend seen nationally. The National Recreation and Park Association, their 2018 annual survey found among the following, which you can see up there. 85% of Americans consider high-quality park and recreation amenities important factors when choosing a new place to live. More than 9 in 10 Americans agree that parks and recreation are important local government services. 76% of Americans are more likely to vote for local politicians who make park and recreation funding a priority. And 78% of survey respondents indicate they want their local governments to increase park and rec space spending. So the school district, you're not alone in the conversations that we're having. We are also trying to work with St. Anthony's to re-envision the square that's at 9th and Washington Street that could also benefit the community center and the church as well. We've been working with the city, who's received a DCNR planning grant to look at the pocket parks and re-envision those, hopefully with some implementation dollars in the future. And parks again come into conversation as we look at equal opportunities within the neighborhood. In addition to workforce training, advancing youth engagement, and STEAM education programming, youth athletic and park leader programs were suggested. Kids need 60 minutes of daily physical activity. The stats are out there. Kids that are within half-mile parks are 5 times as likely to be at healthy weight as those without playgrounds nearby. Beyond that, another staggering statistic is that between the ages of 8 and 18 years old, kids are spending 6.5 hours a day on electronic media. The lack of opportunities for active play is especially critical for kids living in poverty. And the numbers and benefits are obviously similar for adults of all ages. GEP has started the process for the 2019 summer. We're partnering with Y on the 9-week summer program with the Park Leader program for both Centennial and Vanderveer. We expect this program to grow and continue into summer of 2020. As we look to this type of park programming for the future, we'd like the school board to work with us on developing Vanderveer as a phase 2 for Cottingham. And while a single program can only facilitate activity for young children, for example, a great place has activities and amenities that attract a diversity of visitors. So as stated in our goals for the neighborhood plan, finding both financial support and partner support are at the core of making efforts in this plan become a reality. GEP was awarded a Pennsylvania Neighborhood Partnership Program tax credit in late 2018 that brings to fruition the West Ward Community Initiative, which is also what is paying for the summer programming at our parks. While that secures programming dollars for 6 years into the neighborhood, we need partners to work with us to help leverage those dollars and buy into the community's vision laid out in this plan. The opportunities that sit before us with Cottingham Stadium rebuild are enormous, and looking at phase 2 for Vanderveer could be equally as impactful. We want to see the neighborhood environments change, and in order to do that, we need to change the environment that we're living in that neighborhood. I'm happy to take any questions on the plan. I have copies as well if you would like a hard copy of that, or I'm happy to email it to any of you as well. And thank you for letting me talk about the neighborhood.
Questions?
Are there specific amenities that you want to highlight that you would like to see in that particular area? Right now, what there is a small green space, basketball courts, and parking lot. So, is there sort of a redo of that you prefer?
as we talk about Vanderveer, I think it needs to be things that can be enjoyed by the entire neighborhood. So obviously, kids' playground equipment is there, the basketball courts are a huge amenity as well, some kind of track or walking path. I think there are surfaces that could be reused if the parking is needed and making those dual spaces. I think looking at it as a huge blank slate, it's a great piece, and being able to connect it to Cottingham would be huge as well. We've been talking about having access at Cottingham for the community to use the track, and I think having both spaces open to the public, that serve the entire population there as well is beneficial.
Do we use, does the school district use the parking there, or other things?
I think there could be events, but I believe that since we added the parking, that particular piece of property is critical to parking for events anymore, with a notable exception of football games. Perhaps the neighborhood fair that Paxton House holds.
So one of our community engagement events, you guys were gracious enough to allow us onto the field. We put a huge tent out in the middle of it. We brought in a large screen to show the World Cup event. Kids were able to play on that green space. Folks from the city's rec department came up, did engagement activities, soccer-related themes. It was really a great event, and it shows the need for an open green space as well for kids to just run around on. We really do not have anything of that like in the West Ward. Even downtown does not. The closest you would probably come to is Nevin Park up on College Hill, which isn't really amenable to a soccer game on that hill.
So I've seen some designs that would allow for a parking lot to essentially be a green parking lot. When you're looking at only parking on it 9 times a year, that can be a dual use space, so it actually allows vegetation like grass to grow through that is not then destroyed when you're only parking on it 9 times a year. So that would expand the green space area beyond just what is currently in Vanderveer Park. So I know that that's something I'd like to at least consider as an option in the plan.
And I think the basketball courts could also be used for parking. Sometimes the dual, the pervious surfaces that they use aren't great for running on and playing soccer and things like that, but a basketball court could be used for parking. But there are many options. There really are. I think looking at that entire space, like I said, as a blank slate, to really accommodate a lot of opportunities there for the neighborhood.
Is there any vision or options or partnerships with your organization, the city of Easton, and the district to work together? Because, I mean, obviously, we're talking about additional monies to be able to realize these opportunities. So, and it's difficult, I know the school district could be able to go out and get grants like that, but, and I think that's maybe where a partnership, could collaboratively be developed to do something like that.
Absolutely, we are more than open to it. The city has support also, especially with their rec department, to do programming there. We are very interested in it. It meets a lot of the pieces that we talked about in the neighborhood plan. And there's a lot of other partners out there that we could work on a bigger project for. Absolutely.
You're looking at Vanderveer. What are you going to do with the green space across the street that's part of Paxton House? Is that going to be a use for the neighborhood to use too? Are the mods wrong?
I'm missing them. Jerry, can you help me out again?
You have Vanderveer.
Yes.
Across the street is
Yes.
Paxton House, and the green space there, is that going to be available for them to use too? Where the mods were?
Yes.
Because you're talking about Vanderveer, you also have that space there that can be utilized.
And the discussion too was opening the stadium up for the
For walking track.
Now, as you talk about that, who's gonna be there like at all these hours when it's open?
So, I don't know if you've engaged Chief Scalzo from the Easton Police Department. He is more than willing to be part of that conversation. He sees it as a huge, asset in that community, and they are more than willing to be part of that conversation about how it can be opened, closed, monitored, so on and so forth.
I mean, I think, when I look at Randy and Josh, it's probably something we have to consider about, how do you close off the areas, like, you don't want people running up and down stairs and stuff like that in the stadium, going underneath the back area of the stadium, so we probably have to look at, what do we include for closing that off? So that's probably another discussion we have to have in the month of May here, to round that out too, because that has to be included in the plans then, for when it goes out to bid. But you don't want to do it ever now and later. So,
Carrie, can I make a correction there? I'm sorry, I don't want to mislead you there. I was on the other side of the street, and I was thinking about the Vanderveer in that area there. The answer to your question is, at this point, the area we designate as Paxnos's backyard, the big green space, is not available to the public for use. And our past history there has been one that required district personnel to go out and search the playground area in the past for debris and other things that were left behind that weren't appropriate for kids to play around. And so one of the things that we did is we constructed that fence in an effort to try to make sure that any kind of after-hour activities that would certainly be of an inappropriate nature would not necessarily occur on the inside of that fence and on our green space. Now, that is something, again, that was then. It's different now. The neighborhood, people come and go. We've invested tremendous amounts of money there. And perhaps the activity that was there in the past won't occur again. But that is a concern on the part of the district in that space.
John, we just got done hearing about graffiti and everything too. And causing damage, we talked about a scoreboard, we're concerned about damage to the scoreboard itself. I mean, that all has to be taken into consideration as we go.
Well, here's something else from my days on the board. We joined with the local police department and we got cameras mounted. There's gotta be federal funding to mount more cameras out.
Yes.
And put eyes on the place, because that's what we did when I was there. I think we did up a 4-block area around the stadium. The hub was the stadium, and we branched out from there. There's gotta be more money. I'm sure Chief Scalzo will give you information on that. There's federal money for that.
Yes, you're right. Cameras and perhaps some additional lighting in various places there would help out. I noticed that you included a sign regarding the use of Nazareth's track. And I know that when we visited Liberty, their doors are open during the day for residential use. And so the one thing I would say that we may need to consider a bit more, as more of an influence, is the fact that the immediate neighborhood around Paxnosa is far more transient than the neighborhood around Nazareth and the neighborhood around Liberty.
I would disagree with that.
Well, that's what all of our information tells us about the population in Paxnosa.
Overall, but the area immediately around the school.
Okay, but what I'm saying is that one of the factors that may be a result of that is that you only have families and people, or you have a good percentage of families and people who are not necessarily connected to the neighborhood for a long period of time, which means that,
So
you
how
know,
do you
they're-
change, how do you change that? How do you change them being a part of the neighborhood? And that's what we're starting to get at, is how do you provide, how do you
Sure.
change the environment without changing the environment,
Sure.
unless you change that environment? So we're hearing from these outreach sessions that people want this, they want access to green space, they want parks, they want to be able to use the stadium. So if you open those gates, to me, that means they're watching out for any trouble. That means that this is something they want and they're gonna own that as much as they own their home or where they live. They want to continue to have that asset.
I don't disagree with you on that, and I think that may be maybe it's time to take that, assess that sense, and that feeling about the neighborhood, because it may have changed since we last opened the property to people, so.
One of the things I can attest to by being out in the campaign trail with the mayor is things are changing in the city. Anybody applying now to buy a home, to convert it to an apartment, is being rejected by zoning. They want families back in the neighborhood. So that's being changed. And I know there's plans in the future with the county and the city that they're going to be doing more to convert it back to family. I can't get into details about it because I'm hearing some things as I'm running the county seat. So the neighborhood's changing, the mayor's changing, the board's changing. So at some point, I think around the stadium, because they're mostly single homes, they're not going to be converted to apartments anymore. They're going to be going back to family dwellings. So that's something you can look down the future of what you're going to have.
I think that I would like to see some small steps in seeing if we can open that facility up. And I wouldn't say just open it, 24/7, but on the weekends, maybe during this summer, try and see how it goes. But regardless of the outcome of that, clearly then that space around Cunningham becomes really important because it's not currently fenced off, it's not locked, it is an open space. So we should look at how we can make that space, the best that it can be. And I guess what I would like to see are some ideas on paper, like we saw for the stadium, what those would look like, what the different elements would be, the costs, what the district might be able to incorporate or pay for, what we might need to work with somebody else, grants or other, outside funding.
I agree. It's well, because that,
The stadium's locked now.
certain things like that.
You can't walk the stadium now, it's locked.
So how do we get there? How do we get like some ideas on paper with costs to look at? I guess. Who's gonna do that?
Can we engage?
Well, we could talk a little bit about the process for St. Anthony Square, where, we have a sensitive relationship around the property that we don't control, but we had a engaged steering committee where we asked a variety of survey questions on uses and features and aesthetics. An architect or a landscape architect could then generate concepts that then could provide additional discussion. I think in this project, as it looks forward, you could then refine that and approach it potentially as alternates, where you have some design schemes that we don't know how much they cost and we don't know how much Cottingham will cost, and you could have kind of some contingency based around how good a job they do on coming under budget, and potentially looking at what happens if that were to occur and how that influences phasing of Cottingham, or I'm sorry, of Vanderveer. That was another thing we looked at the public space in St. Anthony's is, what could a phase 1 look like, a phase 2, and a phase 3, so that you could kind of make stepwise approach to a more aspirational goal. So I think it requires some input and some design elbow grease, and then some additional feedback from the board on what that could look like alongside a budgeting process. I don't know, did I get that?
can tell you, I have concerns with the budget as it is, so, I mean, we're certainly willing to help out if the district decides that's a good idea.
Well, it would be a separate phase, so therefore it'd be its own little cost and everything, and, you know, as we're talking, maybe there are some, you know, like Randy, too bad Randy left, we could ask him.
Yeah, me.
Maybe he would want to volunteer some time and effort into that design, if that's what it, or if you have another architect that's doing some of that, you know, volunteer for you.
Well,
then
we can
you
also
could
look
start
at-
getting something on the paper.
Potentially supporting it, you know, the design process, if there weren't budget within the soft costs for Cottingham, looking at the city or GDP to help out in that regard. You know, there's, grants have cycles, so it's hard to tap grants for immediate design work. But we could kind of scratch our head and come up with an idea of how to potentially actually pay a designer for the work to help move this along.
And now, as you talk about summer projects, I mean, this summer you could be running projects there in the front of Paxinosa or other places around there, right? Are there plans for that already?
So we're working with the Y to have a park leader program at both Centennial and also at Vanderveer. So they would be programmed from 10 to 2, Monday through Friday. It's a drop-in kind of situation with kids. It's free to any city child. They're also provided a meal at lunchtime as well. So it's supervised play. So it's a great opportunity. It's actually something that existed in the city many moons ago throughout the city. So we're simply bringing it back, and it's a request that we heard constantly throughout the planning process.
Maybe is that, are you planning on a different source of food for your participants? Are you, are we going to work with our summer food?
The Y is working with the school district
Yes,
program.
good.
Yes, correct.
That's great.
Yes.
So John, if this is a supervised program, right, then is there any problem using that area behind us?
No, not for I wouldn't believe that
That's what
for
I'm saying,
summer
super
rec
fun.
program or any kind of program where there's adult supervision and accountability, that would not be a problem that I would see. So that may be a start for us there. And I don't think, a couple of things. My impression is that the board is sensitive, has always been very sensitive to the desire of wanting to offer up space. And in fact, we sort of get lost a little bit in some of this conversation and acknowledging the fact that the district has invested a huge amount of money in the West Ward and in the city by keeping Paxinosa where it is, and refurbishing it, adding to the green space as much as we possibly can, and now staking a claim to Cottingham and keeping that as a city landmark. So if you put all that together, our board's really been tremendously supportive of investing in the West Ward and the city. Our problem seems to be the fact that we may not be talking as frequently as we should be about how we can utilize and look to the future about some of these projects, these smaller projects. I think, I certainly believe that the board would be interested. Our problem and dilemma now is the schedule that we face with Cottingham. We just can't let anything interfere because we're really running on the edge of, if we don't meet this schedule, the district is going to have a terrible time making accommodations for the following year's activities there, and it won't be easy to find another place to play.
And I think we all appreciate that very much, and we would be very willing to start tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock if we want to start a conversation. And because I realize that this stadium that's there now is almost 100 years old. So if we don't look at this stadium now, it's not doing anything for another 100 years. So how do we get this to really function for this neighborhood? Because the neighborhood's not going away. And if it's going to be a strong piece for this neighborhood, as we've talked about, we don't have these spaces in the city, in the neighborhood. So how do we really work with what we have? This is a fantastic opportunity to have and to be able to really make this work well.
Well, it is an opportunity to think about it. Now, I mean, you know, we have to see if with both the board and the city to look at unlocking those gates and saying, all right, let's test things out now. And let's see how many people use it. Let's see if the neighbors and others will be vigilant about the image and inappropriate behavior. And maybe now's the time to do it because, you know, we're gonna tear it down in another year or a year at the end of next season. So that would give the community the use of it over the summertime and perhaps into the fall if things go well. So maybe there's a starting point. The same thing with the supervised day program that you're offering kids. You know, you certainly can take a look at that and work with you, providing that big green space in the backyard.
That'd be wonderful, especially as we move into construction next year. That'll be a big piece. We'll need a location for that because I foresee this as being a really successful program over the summer.
I think the issue you have to do is just follow the playground protocol and dust lock the place up. If it's up there daytime, since it's dark, lock the doors on the track.
Yes, that has to happen, and I think the city has stepped forward with an offer to do that with police. So
I would hope that you would be open to realizing that being a runner myself, I run early in the morning. So I go to the Nazareth track at 5:30 or 6 o'clock in the morning to run. And so I hope you're accommodating for people that get up early to work out, are staying late to work out, and so that we're not trying to capture, you know, if we're not accommodating people that are going to use it and then we don't see a use of it, then we're looking at that.
You realize, Amy, that's not a traffic.
It's a cinder.
It's cinders
How do
now.
you know?
Yeah.
It's cinders now, and it'll be a paved surface eventually, that's it. It's not a traffic.
Can we talk some more about that?
No.
That's a big thing with everybody here.
Just real quick, and just working with Lafayette, that's something that we don't have like the official track either, but there's the after, you know, we kind of do things during non-main times, but, you know, I think it might be too far along in the planning, but I think it's just the consideration of what times might be available with support potentially from the security perspective.
The college has locked gates there.
Sometimes, right? They do.
The only time they do is when we got Lafayette game in, but we don't lock it. I got keys, I can tell you. We don't lock it up. And there's besides, you can walk up the back and get right on the track. That track's open for anybody, even in the summertime. And the field's used for anybody up there.
Just appreciate that neighborhood.
But keep your stuff off of it.
Keep lights down on
Keep
it.
your stuff off of it.
Something that came up, Mr. Reiner talked about summer programming over there. I believe the city of Easton often puts a permit in to have a summer basketball camp, a little bit of a league there. If that's going to be used in an area for staging construction equipment, someone may want to contact the city of Easton, Eric Holden, possibly. And if Josh, if that is going to be used, we may want to contact him if they did put in to use that through Super Ready for this coming summer or next summer.
Yes,
Before they plan a summer basketball league or whatever they do down there at Vanderveer, they may have to relocate for a year.
I think we have some agreement on trying to work out some arrangements for this summer in terms of usage of the facilities and trying things out. I mean, continuing that conversation.
I think John has to, for the May 9th meeting, should have some more conversation with the city and find out how they're going to cover it, the schedule that they're going to cover it, and everything else. And then he can share that with the board at the next meeting.
And are we,
Yes, I can certainly do that.
Okay. Are we interested in spending some money or asking GEDP to spend some money, the city to spend some money on some landscape architectural plans to create a vision for?
I think they should, to bring something, start to bring some ideas forward. I mean, that's what we've asked for, is seeing something on paper.
So outside, just for clarity, that's outside of the relationship with LA 5 and Dewey. So we should look at it as a blank slate.
Yep.
And look at
Yeah,
it.
because that'll be a separate project, that if we allocate money and everything else, and thinking about the taxpayers, because, you know, some taxpayers, not just in the city of Easton or anything, it's
Okay.
at least to get the plans started.
Yeah, I get it. Develop some concepts, but
Yeah.
you're basically asking us to develop concepts with maybe you hand off certain, whatever, preliminary site plans or whatever, and we go from there.
Well, don't you also use that during the year? You can't make it a total blank slate because your staff parks there during the school year.
I have to check on that, because I've been very truthful, since we had the parking lot behind Pax. We've
They're not
got
parking there anymore?
On-street parking, I don't really think that it's required.
I would also say that any good design process would involve some stakeholder engagement, and so we would ask for a list from the district to talk to Elise and others at Paxinosa. Any other uses that have kind of critical demands that relate to Vanderveer. And I don't think we would want to develop concepts that are immediately going to be shut down because they haven't taken into account, you know, some base level concerns.
Our use of Vanderveer is very limited in terms of recess and other activities. I mean, there's I think more after-school activities end up over there during the day. But again, I gotta check on that, make sure that I've got recent information on both parking and use.
Anything else? Any other comments from the public? Hearing none? Thank you.
We have.
I don't know.
Sure.